this is our row of Tayberries which haven't been pruned at all since last year, and we're into January now, so it's really a good time to get these tidied up and against the wall before they start shooting, which they're going to over the next couple of months here in the UK. Now, last year's fruiting spurs, if I just show you that, Tayberries are really vicious little thorny things. But look at this old shoot here. It's brown in colour, dusky, and if I cut through it you can see at the end, dry as a bone, no life in it at all. So there's no doubt at all that that is last year's fruiting spur. Just compare that to these, which are the growth that came up from the base last year, and these are a purpley, slightly sort of whitish but really spiky new vine, and that is the fresh growth that is going to fruit this year. So how to manage these: we want to cut down right to the base all these old vines and remove them completely, and then decide which of the new vines. And the thing about Tayberries is they are pretty vigorous and they shoot up far too many vines for most people to tie into the wall space available. So you have to be a little brutal, decide on the healthiest ones, the ones that are growing in the right position. These can grow anything up to 20 foot in a year, and quite often if they're growing along the ground like this, you will find that they're rooted in. If you've got friends that have admired your Tayberries, that's an ideal opportunity to cut them off, pot them up, and the fresh plant will grow away that year, may even fruit that year on the short stem. You don't want to leave them too long. Obviously, if it's 20 foot beyond the rooted cutting, you've really got to cut that back to within a few inches of the soil level. But in subsequent years they'll have a rampant Tayberry vine, as these are. So I'm going to tidy this one up, remove all this wood, tie some of this new growth in, and then show you the finished job. Now you can see where these boughs have grown right the way up, but just look at the damage on this one at the top. It's split right the way down there due to the weight in part of the vine that's gone over the wall. Now that's just going to allow disease into the plant, so I'm going to be quite ruthless here, and I'm going to, if I can do it one-handed. Oh, these aren't the best of snips. There we go. Remove that completely. And the same on this one. If you see a bough that's broken through like that, where it's been rubbing over this apex and broken through, again, that needs to come out. Same on this one. You see, that's as far as it can go up. Anything beyond that's just going to allow disease into the vine, and it's never going to fruit properly, and you're going to risk losing it. So remove that and all the growth beyond it. Now this vine here, you can see, has put these two great big long growths up here, which are both very close to each other, and this isn't the ideal one to show you on because it's also growing through this rambling rose that I need to remove quite a bit of dead wood from. But what I'd like to do is try and bring this Tayberry bough further down and have the long growth that's going along the top growing along the top, and if at all possible layer this one down onto the wire just below it, so again I can get the maximum length of growth for the fruit. But this will break bud all the way down to the ground, and this will all bear fruit later in the summer, and the fact that you've pruned it back at the top will mean that it does that rather than producing or trying to produce its fruit on damaged or broken wood further along. Now there's a couple of other little boughs coming out lower on. This one, which again has been growing along the ground and has been, probably it's going to be rooted in there when I try and lift it. Let's just have a look, see if it is. I can see it going down there. No, I don't think it is actually. No, it's not there, but that gives me the opportunity to bring this one up against this low wire here and just tie that in, so I've got some Tayberry at this level. And again, there's other vines coming from the adjacent plants which I can bring, and I'm pretty certain that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wires on this wall. By the time I've tidied all this up, I should be able to have a Tayberry vine growing and tied in along the majority of this wall as usual. Let's give it a go. Okay, well here's what I've achieved. Not my best effort ever in terms of getting a good volume of Tayberry onto the wall, but a little complicated this one because of the climbing rose growing up the same area. So we've taken the climbing rose, got the 2 new shoots of the climbing rose onto the wall on these runners, and the 2 older stems, one I've taken right up into the air and the other just terminates here on the lower bile. And the Tayberry, I've got the 2 big vigorous new growths here and here. This one splits into 2. I've got top row, middle row, and then I've dropped the other one down onto the 3rd row down and extended it along. Now you will see that I've tidied the Tayberry back probably by about almost half, in sometimes 2/3 of the growth. I can afford to do that because we've got so many vines along this long wall and we are overrun with fruit as a consequence to it. But the more vine you can manage to tie in and leave, the more fruit you're going to get. Will the fruit be the same quality? Well, possibly. Particularly if you feed these and they're growing in a good deep soil, that's probably not going to make that much difference. We managed to get the lower branch of the Tayberry, the weaker of the 3 shoots, tied in along the bottom. And what we've also found, a stem coming from that vine, I think, had buried itself beautifully in there. And that's a new plant in this position, which I think is probably going to grow over the next few years far better than the one on the end with the competition from the rose. So we may well lose the end one completely and allow the rose to have more of the nutrients and replace it with this plant in subsequent years. We'll see how it does. But hopefully only another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got about a dozen to do along here. Bit of a job, but it's worthwhile doing this time of year, getting them all tidied up, the old wood out, and we'll be picking Tayberries again this summer. Thanks for watching.